people who make good money in the stock market are the ones who know the ins and outs of it and know how to like maneuver and manage it. If you are just going to a financial advisor and following their financial plan, you're not going to make very much money.
There is a new American dream. One that doesn't involve working till you're 65 before you start enjoying life. If you're someone looking for ways to regain control over your time and check off that bucket list now, you're in the right place. We share tips from experts on investing, personal finance, and mindset so that you can finally have the freedom to work less and live more. This is the Freedom Investing Podcast with your host, Kris Toribio.
What's going on, everyone? This is Kris Toribio with the Freedom Investing Podcast, and I'm so happy you're here to join us for another amazing episode. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our latest episodes. Moving on to today's guest, we have Camilla Jeffs. Camilla is the founder and CEO of Steady Stream Investments, an education company teaching people how to add passive income streams to their lives via apartment group investing. Camilla is a general partner in over 1,000 multifamily units and a 65-bed assisted living community. In addition to her 20 years of experience investing in real estate, she holds an MBA and was known as an innovative HR leader for tech companies. Camilla has started 4 successful businesses and is the mother of 5 amazing children. She loves to play soccer and tennis and raise farm animals. Camilla, tons to unpack there right off the bat. Welcome to the show. Before we dive into it, give us a quick 2-minute rundown of who you are, what your background is, and where you are in your journey to achieving time freedom.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Kris. I'm excited to be here and share this time with the listeners, right? Yeah, so I mean, like my bio said, I've been investing in real estate for 20 years, and it was a side hustle for a really long time. And I hit 15 years in, I hit burnout so bad, and I was just because I'd been doing everything myself. Like literally I'd go find the property, we'd fix up the property, we'd drag all the kids there, and we would like clean the property and all the landlording stuff, everything. I did it the hard way, so not everybody has to follow my
Yeah.
path. But I hit burnout, and I was like, man, I totally believe that real estate is the path to wealth, and I need to still invest in real estate. But I was really feeling stuck that I didn't want to put in so much time anymore in investing, and that's when I found passive investing. I found group investing, and I was like, wait a second, you mean I can just invest my money in, and I can like own a piece of an apartment complex and earn pretty close to the same returns as I was earning as with putting in all that time and muscle and effort into my single family properties. And so I switched, and I've been hooked, and I've been excited about it ever since. And that's why I launched Steady Stream Investments, to teach other people, other burnt out people, whether you're burnt out in your profession or burnt out in your investing as a landlord, that there is a better way to invest.
I love that. And honestly, we can really resonate with that as well. When we got started into real estate investing, we have a small multifamily portfolio here in Chicago. And it seems like we work our full-time jobs during the week. And the moment we're off those full-time jobs, boom, you're getting right into you're putting your landlord hat on. And weekends, managing contractors, turning tenants, moving units around, things of all that sort. It really takes a lot of time and effort. And there did come to a point where we also realized, like, look, there's got to be a better way to do this, because how many millionaires have become millionaires through using real estate, and that's how passive investing came around as well. So, kind of backtrack a little bit. What is it exactly that you were doing before in your career, and why did you choose real estate out of all the different asset classes to invest in?
Yeah, well, so let's back up a long time. So, to find out why we got our first investment. So I got married young, and we were both still going to school, college, trying to get our bachelor's degrees. And so they're AKA very poor,
Yeah.
right? Because we were cash flowing our school. We don't believe in getting student loans and still don't. And so we were cash flowing that and working like minimum wage jobs, just trying to make ends meet. And we could not afford to live anywhere nice. And so we found this converted garage apartment that we stayed in. It was like someone's external garage that they converted to an apartment. Really
Yeah.
nasty. Like the heater barely worked, and we lived in northern Utah at the time, and it's very cold in the winter. Um, but that's all we could afford. Like literally, that's all we could afford, and we drove junker cars. So one day, my landlady comes to collect the rent, and I just asked her. I just like, I know you own a lot of rental properties. I mean, how do you do that? How did you get to where you are? I was curious because I thought, well, man, I'm paying her. That wasn't a lot of money, but I'm paying her a bunch of money. And I know she owned this other place and she owned a bunch of them. And she said, well, what you could do is you could buy a house that has a basement apartment in it and rent it out. And I was like, "Wait, what? No, no, no. You don't realize we're living in your garage apartment. Like, there's a reason we're living here because we have no money. You think we can buy a house?" And then also I was skeptical because she was a realtor. So I was like, "Oh, she has ulterior
Yeah.
motives and she wants us to, she just wants to make money off of us." And she said, "No, no, Camilla, it works. It works." So I marinated on that idea for a little bit, talked to my husband about it, and thought, maybe it will work. Maybe it will work. And that's exactly what we did. We went out and we bought our very first house was a 6-bedroom home with a pool in the backyard. And guess what? We only paid $150 a month to
Oh
live
my
there
gosh.
because we rented out the basement and it was amazing. And I was like, wow. And we were able to put very little money down because we took advantage of all the first time home buyer programs that they had at the time and best financing, so the lowest interest rate. Of course, at that time, it was like 7%. Everybody would like freak out right now if you're buying a house at 7%. Um, but it was a low interest rate when we bought it. And it was amazing. And that's what really turned me on to real estate. It was like, okay, real estate is powerful and there are powerful ways that we can live. We can even live cheaply, and so that's really what got the bandwagon going. And we decided, yep, this is the path for us, and we're going to continue this path and try a bunch of different strategies and see which one we like the best. And as so we acquired a lot of single family homes, and we like we decided to do a fourplex and launched a property management company. I mean, all those things happened because we were living in a garage apartment and took a leap. Mhm.
I love that. I love that. And you make a really good point there, in that you just have to take the leap. There's so many barriers that people foresee. When people first think about real estate, they think, oh, real estate is risky. But a lot of that can really be mitigated with education. How did you guys go ahead and get started and build that foundation before you finally decided to take action?
Well, so I think it's a combination. It's a combination of education and action. And so with that first one, it just made sense. After we ran the numbers and we looked hard at it, we're like, yeah, this is kind of a no-brainer. And that's how everybody, especially young people who ask me, how do I get started investing in real estate? And I say, you go buy a house and rent it and rent out parts of it to other people, right? Like the term now is house hacking. You go out and house hack, and that's a powerful way. And in fact, it's the way that we will encourage our children to go. Like, and they go to college, we're going to help them buy a house and house hack it so they can start learning about being a landlord. They can start learning about real estate, and they can live there for free, and not have to pay very much. So combination of that. And then the other thing is, right, like after I decided one of my contributions to our family was going to be the CFO of the family, right? So I was going to be the chief financial officer of our family. And every family needs somebody who's going to kind of take those reins, right? But you always bring your spouse along. It's not a one person thing. Um, and so I studied lots of investing books, right? Like I was like, okay, I got to figure out this stock market thing. I got to figure out bonds. And I bought like a couple I bonds, and I worked at a bank at the time. And so, money was something that I really studied. And the stock market, just never sat well with me. I was like, yeah, I just can't. Day trading was something that you could do, but that felt very risky. And it felt like, like trying to pick the right stock and pick the, right companies. Like, it just takes a ton of education and time. So what do most people do investing in the stock market? Well, you call up a financial advisor, you go in, you're like, hey, I need that, what do I do? I don't know what to do. So they give you advice and they say, well, just put your money in this mutual fund and we'll manage it for you. Right. And then you're like, okay, sure. Put my money in the mutual fund. You manage it for me. Then I don't have to worry about it. Perfect. Well, guess what? You're not going to make very much money doing that, right? Like, the people who make good money in the stock market are the ones who know the ins and outs of it and know how to like maneuver and manage it. If you are just going to a financial advisor and following their financial plan, you're not going to make very much money.
Not to mention that, the fees that are charged to your portfolio in order to manage it are anywhere from 1 to 2%. And while that may seem small, what a lot of people don't realize is that 1 to 2% is getting charged regardless of whether your portfolio is going up or if your portfolio is going down. So, in
Exactly.
terms of what that means over the long term with all these market cycles that we all experience, it's like, the amount of time that it would take to play catch up on those down years is really, really difficult.
Yeah.
And you end up
Yep.
with
Yep.
not much left relative to if you were just doing it on your own.
Exactly.
So you have 4 successful businesses, you have 5 children. How on earth do you go ahead and plan the time of day to get all of this stuff done? You're clearly a rock star when it comes to time management. Kind of share with our listeners about how you go about managing all of this stuff.
So I like to be busy for sure, right? I like to have a lot going on in my life. I just feel more fulfilled when my days are full, and they are definitely full. But I know, like, one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was time freedom, and so with everything that I've done, I went back to school. I got my MBA. I had a really nice, cushy corporate job. It was stressful. It was a stressful job. It caused me to work a lot of hours, and and when we always had real estate on the side. Well, in October of last year, I left my full time job to become full time in real estate, and I did that very intentionally at this time in my life because my 5 children are almost all of them are teenagers, and I'm realizing that I have very little time left with them, right? Before they leave, they go off to college, they start their own lives, and they're not going to be in my home anymore. And I don't have the opportunity to provide as many experiences as I could when they're in my home. And so I was like, you know what? I got to do something about this. And this is a pain point for a lot of us, a lot of us parents who are, suddenly are in the teenage years and you're like, wait a minute, I only have like 2 years and then they're
Yeah.
gone. And what's happening? And it's hard to think about. I mean, well, some parents are probably rejoicing and excited, like, "Yeah, finally, like, get him out." I'm the opposite. I'm like, We don't want to talk about you leaving. Like, I'm not ready." But I left that intentionally because I wanted the time freedom and the flexibility to provide very specific experiences for my children. For example, I am taking my twin daughters to Paraguay in July to go and do a humanitarian trip to build a school for kids there who, the kids there, they only have one school building, but there's so many kids that need to go to school that they literally have to break them up and be like, some go in the morning, some go in the evening, and some go at night. And so they just don't have the facilities to be able to accommodate all the children who need schooling. So I want to take my kids and I want to do things like this. But if I had a corporate job, this is a 3-week trip. If I had a corporate job, how many corporate jobs would allow you to take 3 weeks off, in the middle of summer, maybe 1 week, right? Or they'd be like, what? You want 3 weeks off? That means you can't have any other time off the rest of the year, right? And you're gone, you're done. And and I just don't want to operate like that anymore. I definitely want my time freedom so I can spend that with my children before they are gone. And yeah, you asked about like time management strategies for sure, right? For sure, I have to be very intentional with my time. And so, when my kids go to school, that's my time to work on my businesses. And when they come home from school, that's my time to work, be with them and spend the time with them. And so it's funny, right? You may think, oh, she's got 4 businesses, she's got 5 kids, she's working all the time. The opposite is actually true. I mean, I get up in the morning, I start my day around 8:30 a.m. in like working, right? My work day. I'm done at 4 and I turn off. And I don't work nights. I don't work weekends. And I know a lot of people that are building businesses like mine are working like that, right? And a lot of them brag about how much they're working.
The daily
And
grind.
I just, yeah, I just sit here quietly and I just know that, that I, I'm building my business intentionally to provide that time freedom.
I love that, right? It's very strange. I feel like a lot of American culture really kind of emphasizes the ability to almost work harder than others, and they put that on a pedestal. Like, look, I'm grinding away. What are you doing? Or I'm grinding away. Look how hard I'm working. And when you take a step back and really realize, what's important to you in your life, and for this, everyone is different. I can almost pretty much guarantee that it's not going to be, I worked harder than every single person out there. A lot of it is, as you were saying, memories, building experiences with your children, building experiences for yourself and maybe your significant other. And that's something that we resonate with as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And you have to be intentional about that too, because if you're not, then that time just gets away from you and you realize, okay, I just spent the last couple years that I had with my children working like crazy and now what? Right? Now they're gone.
Right, right. They always say, you could always make more money, but time is something that you can never get back. Once it's spent, that's it. You can't get that
Mhm.
back. So, really harnessing the ability to have control over your time is a huge critical thing that I think a lot of people kind of overlook a little bit. But with that being said, for someone who was in your former position working in corporate, or someone in general, maybe a busy professional who has been just working constantly and is looking for a way out, why do you think that people fail in pursuing this type of venture? I guess what do you think is maybe some reasons why people are prevented from taking action or taking control over or the situation?
Yeah, well, so a couple of things, right? One is fear of the unknown, and I think it all boils down to fear, because you'll have a bunch of fears around how does it even work? I think one of my silly fears was, well, if I leave my corporate job, what am I going to do with my day? Because in my corporate job, I had like back-to-back meetings. I was wanted and needed, and every 30 minutes I had to jump on a different call, right? And so suddenly you leave the corporate job and you're like, oh, I have lots of white space in my calendar. Now what do I do? and and so you have to be intentional about how you're feeling that time. And so that's one of the silly fears that I had. And another fear that you have is that it won't work out, or right, the economy will tank, or things will happen if you're just relying on your investments. But here's the reality. The economy tanks. I mean, I worked in HR, right? I can't tell you how many times I pulled people into my office and had to let them know that their job had just ended, right? Just like that. Job gone. We walked them out like right away. You're done. Uh like
It's
you
tough.
relying on someone else to provide your income, while most people feel safe in that, the reality is it could be gone at any moment. It's risky, right? It's definitely risky. So, you know, and if you're someone who has been working in the corporate, like me, so you've been working for about 20 years, right, in corporate. Hopefully, over that time, you've increased your income, you have set aside some money, right? And so you could take a look at what money do you have set aside already, right? So what money built up? Maybe it's in your 401k, maybe it's in a Roth IRA or a regular IRA, some kind of retirement accounts. Take a hard look at those and really take a deep dive into how have they performed? How are they performing? And because one of the things that I disagree with when people talk about retirement, I disagree with the the fact that, oh, you need X amount of dollars to retire. I don't agree with that. Like, I don't agree that that's the goal. I think the goal is you need X amount of dollars coming in every month to retire, right? So you need to still focus on that income, on how you're going to continue to generate income even when you leave your corporate job, or maybe it's just your 9 to 5 job, right? How do you continuously bring in income? And the answer to that is by investing in real estate, right? Because real estate gives you cash flow. Real estate gives you appreciation and equity in buildings. You become an owner, and being an owner is one of the most important ways to build wealth. It's a simple answer, right? If you want to know how do I build wealth, you become an owner. You need to own something, and you don't have to own it by yourself either, because that's a lot of work, right? Like I talked about, the first 15 years owned by ourselves, and that was a ton of work. Now we own as a group, right? I own a piece, but I own a piece of a $65 million asset. And so my piece, although my percentage is small, I still own a piece of that asset, and I don't have to do any of the work that's involved with it. I don't have to find the tenants. I don't have to mow the lawn. I don't even have to go find the right property and do the negotiations and all of that. I can rely on experts to do that. And that's the power of investing passively and generating all of these little streams of income. And you just got to stack them, right? And so that's what you do. If you're hitting the point of burnout in your job, or in your as a landlord, right? You gotta switch your mindset to, okay, I'm not trying to accumulate a big lump sum. I need to figure out, how do I stack streams of income?
I love that. Yes, it certainly takes a mindset shift, right? It's less focused on saving for a future nest egg and instead looking for cash flow now. Because I think a good thing to consider too is inflation, right? So if someone is going to be working and saving up for this retirement nest egg for 30 years, and calculate that now and say, all right, 30 years from now, I'm going to need, let's say, for the sake of simplicity, $2 million. The thing is that $2 million 30 years from now is not going to be nearly worth as much as it is today. And so
So
that $2 million projection may actually be significantly more, simply due to the rising cost of goods and services over the span of that time, right? But if you say, well, I am making, let's say I am making $5,000 a month every month. Well, now it's something that's a little bit more tangible and something that can be achieved sooner, because you're like, okay, well, what income streams can I acquire that will help me get to that $5,000 now? And the difference is, you don't have to wait for 30 years. You can potentially do that much sooner than that. So that's huge.
exactly.
That's huge.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of inflation, it's interesting because it's something that we as real estate investors have known and preached for a very long time, that, hey, investing in real estate is a hedge against inflation. Why is it a hedge? Like, why does it help you? Well, because when you invest in real estate, inflation goes up, but that means the rents go up, right? And that means the value of the building goes up. And so the value of your investment just continues to go and beats inflation, right? And but it's funny that it's not until we're in this hyperinflation state that we're in right now, right? May of 2022, that everybody's like, oh my gosh, inflation is killing me. Like gas prices start going up and people are just dying. And so it's just really interesting that it takes a hyperinflation environment for people to kind of wake up and realize, oh my gosh, yes, my money is getting eaten up by this inflation monster, and now I need to do something with it. Because it's been fun to talk to passive investors lately about this, because they're well, of course they're going crazy because the stock market is just tanked
Tanked.
like so bad. And so they're trying to figure out, well, what do I even do? Like, what do I do? All the financial experts say, just leave it in there and, just let it, just, it'll come back, and it might, right? But the interesting thing about the stock market is it's just a roller coaster. And that's what I learned early on, is that the stock market, might go up really high for a year or two, and then it tanks, right? And if you are relying on that for your retirement, that's scary, because what if you decided this is the year you were going to retire, 2022, like that's the year I set, I'm going to retire in 2022, and now all of a sudden you've lost 30% of your retirement income, your retirement nest egg, right? Because you've bought into the lump sum, you know philosophy of retirement. And had you made a different choice and bought into the stack income streams retirement philosophy, you'd be just fine, right? And you probably could have retired 10 years ago, to be honest.
Absolutely.
But that's the risky thing that I think about the stock market.
Yep. And you make a good point. Like, the stock market hasn't been doing well. And as real estate investors, many of us are looking at our portfolios and we're like, this is great. Our assets are
Yeah, I know.
valued higher than they ever have been. We're still cash flowing. This is doing fantastic. And you're right. It definitely serves as a good hedge against the stock market and doesn't necessarily follow market trends as much as the market does. In fact, aside from 2008, which was a real estate related event, apart from that, property values over the course of the previous recessions have actually still continued to go up, which is a really interesting
Mhm.
concept a lot of people don't realize. All right, so transitioning over to the ends of the show, but before we finish, it's time for our Freedom Five. So these are 5 questions that we ask every guest on our show, starting with the most important question, which is 1, what is your why? What is the underlying motivation behind everything it is that you do?
So my why is my children, and I want to show them that they can achieve everything, but I also want to show them what the reality is about achieving everything. For example, they know when I have failed. I talk about it all the time, and we talk about failure as a family and how that's a good thing, right? That it's okay to not do well, right? They know the first time I was a guest on a podcast, they knew how scared I was and how frightening that was to put myself out there. They have attended some of my speeches at conferences, and I'm just there to inspire them. I feel like that, the success that I achieve, they're going to 10x, 100x my success. And I'm so excited to cheer them on.
That's amazing. Number 2, what book has had the largest influence in your life?
Okay, so this one it's a silly one because I always go back to when I was a teenager. So when I was a teenager, I read a book and it was called Kissing a Frog, but the subtitle was Finding Comfort Outside Your Comfort Zone. And the book was so influential to me, even as a young teen, to really live my life just barely outside my comfort zone. I never advocate trying to go way far out, but that comfort zone is really interesting because you live in your comfort zone, but then you expand it every so often. You expand, you expand, you expand, and case in point, podcast interviews, right? Like I'm so comfortable doing an interview and coming on people's shows, whereas the first time I did it was not comfortable at all. And so you just live just barely outside that comfort zone, and you just grow, and it's this continuous growth throughout your whole life.
That's great. My wife and I follow by the same motto, and that's get comfortable feeling uncomfortable. Because you're right. The more
Mhm.
you accept and the more you get accustomed to that feeling, um, eventually you're going to desensitize yourself to whatever it is that's causing you to have that feeling, right? And then
Yes.
you're suddenly in your comfort zone. Well, if you follow the motto by getting comfortable feeling uncomfortable, well, then naturally the next step is to do something else that'll make you feel
Yep.
uncomfortable. And you're right. Over time, you just naturally get to grow and develop yourself, and it's really a powerful thing. Number 3, what is the most impactful thing, whether that be a piece of technology or a habit or a person, that has helped in freeing up your time?
Oh, so the most impactful thing, um, I think it was just the decision to do it, right? Like the decision that yes, I'm going to take back my time, and I'm not going to donate my time to, uh, you know, building other people's dreams, right? Like it's my time to build my dream and to build, the type of experiences that I want to have.
Love it. Number 4, what is the number one piece of advice you would give to anyone looking to achieve more control over their time?
Okay. So, number one piece of advice would be to go for it. Right? Like to just go, just try it, right? I mean, you really you have nothing to lose. So, if you're for example, if you're ready to exit your job and live off of passive income through your investments, um realize that you could try it for 6 months, right? So you can set yourself up, you'll make sure you have good reserves in your account and in your bank account, and then you just go for it and just try it for 6 months, see how it works out, see how you're feeling about it. If you hate it or if you're like still super uncomfortable, you can always pivot and go back and get a job again, right? Because you most likely you have skills that people need in the workforce. So really just like go for it.
I love that. And I think I just want to emphasize that a little bit more is when you think about making the leap into something that can create an amazing thing for your life, many people just have to think about like what is truly the worst case scenario. And the worst case scenario is if you leave your job, you go and try and travel, or you go and explore this entrepreneurial venture, and you just go ahead and do it and give it a solid effort. Like, truthfully, what is the worst case scenario that can happen is you go back and do what everyone else is already doing. You go back and get a job and you continue living your life as you would had you never tried that in the first place. And the biggest difference is that at least you took forth the effort to try and explore that
Mhm.
venture and see where it is. And you'll never have that life full of regret because you actually went ahead and just tried and doing it. So that's huge.
Right. Well, and you can even flip that too, and you can say, what's the best case scenario, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you can say in your mind, what if it all goes wrong? But what if it all goes right? You know? Like that's pretty amazing.
absolutely. All right. And the last and final question here. What is the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you?
So, best way is to connect with me on LinkedIn or Facebook, just with my name, Camilla Jeffs. Or you can go to my website, steadystreaminvestments.com. I have a lot of educational material there, and I have a free course. It's called Passive Investing Made Easy. It's just a series of videos to really teach you the ins and outs. And there's a one of the courses there shows you what happens if you invested every single year for 10 years and how you could be financially free.
That's amazing. Everybody go ahead and check that out, steadystreaminvestments.com. Camilla, tons of great information today. I really liked how you talked about your family and why they were able to kind of motivate you to go ahead and explore this option. You also provided really good insight in terms of how to go about exploring alternative ways to live life outside of the corporate life, as well as time management skills. I think all of these things can really apply to our listeners, and I really appreciate you being on the show. So thank you again for being a fantastic guest, and I look forward to remaining in touch.
Thanks so much.
Now, if you like this show and want to learn more about how we can help you free up your time through passive real estate investments, check out www.freedominvesting.com. Make sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter and schedule an introductory call with our team. We also have a free 7-day course on what passive real estate investing is and how to get started so that you can start your journey towards earning back more time in your life. To all of our amazing listeners here on the Freedom Investing Podcast, my name is Kris Toribio. Till next time.